possibilities and pathways. Okay, so welcome everybody here. So we have some interesting panelists, and our moderator for the day will be Dr. L. Shashi Kumar Sharma. My name is Narendra, and I am a professor at Dhruva College of Management, Hyderabad. As you may have seen, we are hosting this webinar from probably around 5 locations. Myself sitting in Hyderabad, Shashi sir, who will be the moderator for this particular webinar, is based out of Mizoram. Professor Sunita is based out of Darjeeling. Krishna Priya, who is based out of Aurangabad. Devi Akela, who is joining us from United States Alabama State University. So briefly to talk about, introduce our moderator, or I'd like to call the L. Shashi Kumar Sharma show for today. So Dr. L. Shashi Kumar is the head of the Department of Management at Mizoram University and a distinguished academician. He has produced several research papers related to handloom and handicraft, consumer behavior, service marketing, information technology, and world trade. He has more than 25 years of experience in teaching management in India and Bhutan. Over to Shashi Kumar sir, and he'll be the moderator for today. Sir?
Okay, thank you very much, Narendra. As Narendra has already introduced, my name is Shashi Kumar Sharma, generally known as LS Sharma, and I'm the head of department at Mizoram University. Today, for this webinar, I'm going to be the moderator, and this webinar is entitled, Can Management Be Taught Online? Possibilities and Pathways. During these days of global pandemic, the decisions that we take, it will shape the future, and these decisions are also going to affect in every sphere of life, be it in economy, politics, and culture. Decisions that we take today may be in emergencies, which otherwise may have taken a lot of deliberations in normal times. And in today's webinar, we're going to discuss about the online management education. So let us begin with the question of the fundamental question, what is management? Management may be defined in various ways, but I will not get into the details of it. But in brief, talking about in terms of the functional aspects, management involves with the coordination and overseeing the work of activities of others to be achieved by organizational goals. So management also refers to the activities or the group of people or effort for the purpose of accomplishing a goal that involve in the 4 types of functions, that is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Management also deals with learning to work in a team, learning to manage and supervise employees effectively, and fundamentals of 4 functions of management, that is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling effectively. In the last 3 months, there has been a paradigm shift in the mode of imparting education, and several institutions have adopted to the online mode of teaching. So shifting from the traditional mode of teaching to online mode, and in the case of management discipline, which requires a varied pedagogy, is in a crossroad and is questioning in terms of the pathways and possibilities of online teaching, particularly for management education. So in this webinar, A three-member panelists will try to characterize how online education is a possibility, especially in the field of management discipline. This webinar also will try to touch upon the issues of the three main domains: the psychological transition from the classroom teaching to a web-enabled platform, followed by the tools which can be used, which can smoothen the journey, and finally, the real-life stories or the narratives from the West to end with. So before starting, I'd just like to give a little bit of housekeeping instructions. There is a chat line icon on the top right-hand side corner out there. And if you have any queries or questions, you can pop them up during the session. So without further ado, let me introduce the first panelist of the session. The first of all I would like to invite is Professor Sunita Rani, who is a doctorate in management in HR and master in applied psychology, who also happens to be a gold medalist and master in business administration. Professor Sunita is currently working in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie. Her career till date is an interesting mix of several varieties of profession, from teaching, training, administration, and personal management. She started her career as a lecturer in the year 2000. She was commissioned in the Indian Air Force in 2004 and completed her short service commission tenure successfully and retired as squadron leader. Her current teaching interests revolve around communications, ethics, emotional intelligence, leadership, personality, negotiation, teamwork, and group dynamics, as well as gender issues. Her recent research works focuses on the area of leadership and motivation in public service, and particularly women leaders in police services. She is a certified trainer for workshops on personality development, especially related with Paradigm Personality Lab in Charlotte, North Carolina, leadership activities and negotiation with the Institute in Bocconi in Italy. In addition to contributing to meaningful research in the areas of psychology, organizational behavior, and human resource management, her career objective is to train civil servants capable of serving the society meaningfully. So without further ado, let me invite Professor Sunita Rani to this platform. Over to you, madam.
Thanks, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you. Please carry on. Yes.
So thanks again, Dr. Sharma, for setting the context so well, and special thanks to dear Krishna Priya for having me here. And a warm welcome to everyone who have joined us today here. I'm actually super excited to be here. So before I come to the topic which is assigned to me, that is psyche and transition to e-learning, I want to ponder over what actually education is for a minute. So as if we go back to what Swami Vivekananda has said about the education, that the education should enable one to realize oneself. And similar views can be found in our scriptures also. And while helping the individual to achieve what they are capable of, higher education has an additional aim, and that is to provide the essential life skills to the students so that they can contribute to their own living as well as the society. So the intent of higher education remaining same, the ways of imparting have been changing according to the resources available. So in this pandemic, the best resources available to us is online platform, and we all are trying in our own ways to learn and adapt to it. So if you see in last couple of decades, management as a subject, we have been moving towards online teaching by following logical small steps. That is from like face-to-face teaching to we were moving towards the blended learning and then exposing ourselves to the online teaching. So many top ranking management schools of the world, they had already started offering online courses before this pandemic also to increase their reach across the globe. Many well-known organizations were already switching to online training of their employees. So we were already there on the way to bring management teaching and training online, though we were at the various places on this continuum of change. But this pandemic has actually forced us, all of us, to accelerate this transition and have hardly left any choice but to come to the online platform. So the first thing which I want to discuss regarding the psyche and these transition challenges is that this is unexpected challenge. So none of us actually thought about it. So if a faculty member has never taught online nor used any blended learning, they are suddenly forced to prepare to teach online. So that may be a daunting task for them. And it is absolutely okay to feel miffed, anxious, or uncertain at times. So most of these feelings and issues are related to moving from face-to-face teaching to online teaching. So they are related to the psychological transition which is required from one way of teaching to another way of teaching. And it will take time. So it will take time to adjust to this kind of teaching. And my advice to all the teachers will be kind to yourself and your students also, because students also have their own share of problems and issues, and they are equally disoriented like we are. And this successful online teaching, it requires that the three pillars, the one is teachers, community, and institutions, they all actively support each other. By that, I mean that teachers will be able to perform well in online teaching only when they have all the technical support available in terms of appropriate hardware, software, network speed. So I did one study recently on online teaching and challenges associated with it. So I found that in India, especially in rural areas and semi-urban areas, internet speed is a big issue. So most of the teachers, they have to use cell phones or just send SMS or WhatsApp messages that can be easily accessed on the phone. So they cannot fully access the opportunity of this online teaching. So this online teaching, when I'm speaking, so as teacher, we perceive online teaching differently, depending upon our own psychological makeup, depending upon our experience, the subject we teach, and where we teach. So our institution, our places, who are our students. So some of us think that online teaching is actually same as the face-to-face teaching. So it is just that you have to prepare your class as you are preparing for face-to-face class and just deliver it in front of camera. But teaching online is not same as teaching face-to-face. The role of faculty in online teaching is changed. It has changed in terms of pedagogical, social, managerial, and technical requirements. So if you see pedagogically, the ways you were using for the face-to-face teaching, you cannot shift these ways directly to the online teaching. Like, for example, I have been teaching negotiation with the help of role plays. Now I am trying to find out the best ways possible, which is available on the platform, online platform, how to teach this role play of negotiation on the online platform. So I have to figure out, I have to learn, I have to search that how to deliver it in a better way. Earlier, as teachers, we were not that concerned about the social environment of the class. It used to happen on its own way. The students used to make their own groups, and there was a class dynamics developing naturally. But now as teachers, we have to be a facilitator in creating a friendly social environment, which is necessary for online learning. Managerially also, our role is changing. And most of all, we have to learn and become comfortable with the technology that is being used. And this is for the first time that we are our own instructional designer. We are technologists without much assistance from outside. So the next thing is that in terms of time and efforts, online classes take longer to prepare. It demands more effort on part of teacher to prepare while you have to develop it for the online platform. So those who think that online classes are easy to take, including the students, they should remember that it takes a lot of efforts, a lot of time of the teacher to develop online sessions. The next issue related to the perception regarding online teaching is that when we are speaking, we think it's same, like again, that face-to-face and online, this is same. But I have personally realized, and many people have told me, my colleagues, that the pace of our speech has to be slower in online teaching, because we have experienced that it takes longer to explain any concept as compared to the face-to-face class, and the attention span of student is also shorter. So we have to be the pace has to cater to the internet speed also. So when we speak, our timing may go off. So we have to consciously try to speak at a slower rate so that our students are able to figure out what we are saying because of the delay in reception at their end. And lastly, many of us, we tend to have unrealistic expectation from our online class. We think that the same outcome we can achieve in the online classes also as we were doing in the face-to-face class. But again, in face-to-face class, whatever time was taken, it will take double the time in online class. So we have to be ready, we have to be mentally ready for this kind of things. The next is that this online teaching, again, as I mentioned, that I have been doing this study with the teachers on challenges related to the online teaching. So I asked them in the survey that given a choice, how would you like to continue your teaching? So only 4.2% of them said that they would like to continue the online teaching, the proper online teaching. Most of them prefer to have the combination of both. So it shows that we as a teacher, we generally don't feel that online teaching is as enjoyable as face-to-face teaching. So not even in my survey, there was another survey which was way back in 2017. They found that only 9% of academicians, they prefer to teach in a completely online environment. So if you see, a good majority of us do not see the value of trying to become a good online teacher. So if I recall my days, or if you recall your days when you were preparing to be a teacher, I'm sure none of us thought of becoming a great online teacher. But now situation has changed. And when we are getting used to operating in new ways and moving to online platform, it will push most of us out of our comfort zone. We have to actually try harder to learn the technique to become the better online teacher. So if most of the academicians, they do not perceive online teaching to be as rewarding as face-to-face, that might be because we are not doing it right. We are not trained to do it right. So largely this resistance which is coming, I take it for granted that like many of you have tried this online teaching and you must have faced many issues. So that this resistance which is coming among the teachers may be related to the lack of support, the assistance, and the training provided by the institutions of higher education. So again, I asked this question in my survey: have you attended any training before this going to the online teaching? Then only 25% of them actually got any kind of training before going on the online teaching. 74% of them were going without any training. So we can understand that how much, how difficult it was for them to go to a new platform without much training. So now I want to discuss some of the usual mistakes which as a teacher we do in online teaching, that sometimes we do not pay attention to the background that we use while we are taking online sessions. Our background may actually be a kind of a distraction for students. We should be conscious about the space we are using for taking online sessions. It is as good as like preparing our classrooms for taking sessions. The second issue, the mistake we do is that we continue, like without giving break. We continue taking lecture as we were doing in face-to-face. But in online teaching, we have to give more breaks in between. And I personally felt that it is healthier for the students as well as the teachers. Thirdly, that some of us, like there was no training in my sample survey, many of us have also experienced this, that we are going on online platform without learning about the online platform properly. And we are dependent on our technical team for everything. So before going on online platform, we should get used to the whole platform and especially the LMS which is being used with it. The second issue related to this teaching is that the class dynamics, it has changed from face-to-face to online teaching. What are the issues with class dynamics? Some of you will echo what I'm sharing here, that when you are teaching face-to-face, you get to know how well the class went by the engagement of the students, by the discussion which went during the class, by the kind of energy and discussion during and after the class, by the nod of heads. But in online teaching, you do not get this kind of feedback immediately. Like there is a delayed feedback about how the class went. So we have to learn to become comfortable with different modes of receiving feedback, which were earlier there. Now they are not there. The second thing related to class dynamics is, and this has been reported in my survey also, that there is a difficulty in developing personal connection with the students, because we are not able to see them all together. And because this bandwidth problem, it doesn't allow everyone to use their video at a time. So we have to mute the video. Sometimes we have to mute the audio. So all these things, they act as a barrier in developing personal connection with the students. So without connection, it is very difficult to feel yourself in the class and make the students comfortable. So what we do at our institute is, when we have to take online class, we come at least 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the class. And as and when the students are joining, we greet them by their name. We ask about how they were and how things are going, so that there is a kind of, we are trying to replicate the classroom environment here. The next issue is the difficulty in controlling the distractions. So this we are not sure whether the students are actually doing the activity which we have given to them, whether they there is actually network issue or they are pretending about the network issue. So there are so many things which as a teacher we used to control in the classroom environment that we cannot do now. So this is one issue. And the related issue is that this distraction will happen when students will not feel engaged. So there is an issue of student engagement. So we as a team, we are actually learning to use diversified modes of engagement by explaining, guiding, asking and answering question in between, illustrating by using slides, videos, and different activities, so that students, they feel engaged in their class and there is lesser distraction. And lastly, in terms of class dynamics, what I want to share is that because on this online platform, the chances of miscommunication are more. So if you have to actually communicate in a proper way, you have to over communicate to avoid miscommunication. So when there is a class, we send an email, we place notices on discussion boards, we try multiple ways of communicating with the student, and we, even after the class, online class, we stay for some time so that if students have any query or they want to ask anything, they are free to ask. So these were some issues related to the class dynamics. Now I want to highlight some of the issues which are from the student's point of view. So as I said, that it's not only that we as teacher are facing issues, even students are facing issues. So some of the teachers, they think like online classes are like electronic correspondence courses where students have to work through the content alone. So we assume that the students will be able to walk themselves through an online course without much guidance from the instructor. But we have to realize that these students are away from the physical setup of the classroom. We are not there with them. Their friends are not, classmates are not there with them. So they may feel isolated. They may feel confused. They may feel disoriented. So as a teacher, this is our role to make them comfortable. And lastly, related to students, I want to actually request all teachers. I have seen that many teachers, in order to compensate for the face-to-face privileges, we overload them with the assignments. It is actually very stressful for the students. We have to be practical. We have to be empathetic while giving the number of assignments, how many assignments a person can actually handle. So in the last concluding thoughts, I want to just share that a positive attitude and a flexible mindset, these are the key to make the online transition of management education as smooth as possible. So first, maybe initially when we are learning to use the technology, the tools, we may feel that the technology is coming as a barrier between we as a teacher and student. But with time, when we adopt them, students will be visible again. The technology will become invisible. The tools will become invisible, and your own style will take over. So you, by changing by keeping our mindset open to learn many ways to do things, rather than finding ways not to do things, we will be able to cope up with this. And lastly, what I want to share is, and want to kind of give a warning also, that we try to learn all the tools available. Sometimes that kind of anxiety is there to be a better teacher. So learn all the things, learn all the tools available, but use them as per your style. You know, as a teacher, you have your own unique style of teaching. So in online platform also, you have your own style. So let the style come, let the style be there, and learn the technology and find your own ways of using it. Then, you know, if it actually doesn't matter what you use to teach, what is the medium to teach, so long as we actually understand how we are trying to connect to our audience, our students. So I hope some of the queries were there before the webinar. I have tried to address these queries also in this presentation. I hope that was making some sense to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sunita. I think that was a wonderful presentation, going into the psyches of the students as well as the faculty members for switching over from the traditional to online. Thank you very much once again. Now I would like to go on to our second panelist. Our second panelist is Dr. R. Krishnapriya, who is working as an assistant professor at the Department of Management Science at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University in India. Her doctoral thesis is in the area of human resource accounting. She also mentors students in subjects of cross-culture and strategic human resource management. She, having spearheaded the outcome-based education regime in our department, she has also introduced new courses in the university. Her research area spans both from strategic human resource management and cultural goods and heritage management. Most of her research work has been in quantifying intangibles, especially in terms of cultural goods or human intangible value. Priya has also delivered lectures relating to the themes of cultures and heritage. She has also a wide range of publications in the forms of book, chapter, and case studies. So now I invite Dr. Krishna Priya to talk about the tools and methods of online teaching. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Before going ahead, let me thank the organizers of this webinar and the esteemed moderator, Dr. L.S. Sharma, Mizoram University. I also express my gratitude to my fellow speakers for the day, Professor Sunita Rani and Professor Devi Akela. I would be wrong on my part if I don't thank my very dear friend Narendra for coordinating and collaborating this so well, this webinar so well. Now coming on to the task that I have been invested with, let me be like Sunita had handled it so well that she was invested with the responsibility of speaking the why of e-learning. Why do we need to shift on to the virtual environment of learning? I am invested with the responsibility of speaking about the how to go to the virtual environment of teaching methodologies, how to technologically enable ourselves. And one of the important reasons why most of us are a little hesitant with adopting this digital platform is because of, in a way, a rudimentary awareness about the tools, open source as well as the paid source that are available for faculties. And hence, I'm here to shed a little light on that. Now, before we go ahead with the actual tools and dwindle down to the epicenter of this whole webinar, let me speak about, has it been for the first time that the humanity has been posed with something as disastrous as the pandemic that we are dealing with? The answer is a blatant no. The answer is definitely a blatant no. Out of the many disasters that we are speaking about, Spanish flu, which came almost 100 years ago, was one of the biggest pandemics, in fact, syndemics of that time. So, while we have dealt with so many disasters, it has been the resilience of the humankind, the embedded bouncing back syndrome that we have, which has actually helped us to dive over the times. Now, so while I'm giving this pep talk of all goody good things that is going to happen and a bouncing back syndrome, am I saying that we are going to be normal? The answer is a yes, we are going to be normal, but then this normal is going to be a neo-normal. At this point of time, expecting as teachers to go back to our traditional days of teaching looks to be a little fantasy. But then, yes, we will be back to our normal days. We will be back to our normal days. Is there some problem with the projection?
No, please continue. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So going back to our normal days will be a little fantasy-ish, but then the neo-normal is going to be equally beautiful. Let us be very, very optimistic about that. Now, when we are speaking about the neo-normal, let's understand what are the specific challenges that this neo-normal is going to bring for our fraternity, our teaching fraternity. The reason why we find this neo-normal, this technology-enabled education system a little challenging is because the shift has been abrupt. One fine day, we have this pandemic coming in, It did come in a few months of time, but then we had to abruptly shift from our traditional face-to-face or class teaching methodology to an online platform. So that abrupt shift and no buffer time actually created a challenge for us. The second challenge was expectation for us to be ambidextrous. Ambidextrous in the sense we have to be equally good with the content, with the teaching method. I need to also now take care additionally of technology and teaching effectiveness, taking cognizance of my students' body language, even on a virtual platform, is actually something that's challenging as a faculty. Now, the third challenge that this neo-normal virtual platform has posed us as teachers is the magnitude of students that we need to cater to. Earlier, I was handling larger classes. Now I need to divide them. I need to make them into smaller chunks so that the learning is effective and I could keep an eye on all my students, even on a screen, even on my laptop. So now from a larger class, I'm shifting onto a smaller classroom, or vice versa, wherein I had smaller classrooms to address, to cater to in a traditional environment. Now on a virtual platform, I'm taking care of larger classrooms, larger classes, wherein the students are spread across continents, especially for our executive program. We could find that now maybe the larger classrooms are spread across continents, across time zones, and across cultures. Now making them feel inclusive in the class is again the magnitude as well as inclusiveness of these students into the class is one more challenge that I need to be catering to as a faculty. Now at the same time, the dichotomy that I'm going to speak soon is also a challenge, and the students who are reticent, calm, indifferent, and active, I need to be equally attentive to them. Now, how do we overcome this neo-normal thing? I have enlisted the challenges. Let's see how we could actually now handle it. The first one is the developing psychological plasticity. Now, psychological plasticity is what Sunita has spoken about at length, wherein we need to look at the positives of this neo-normal, positives of a technology-enabled classroom system, and just not crib about what's going on wrong. The cognitive overload that I have to take care of multiple things I need to juggle between technology, lecture, and content can also be taken care of by trial and error. Let's feel what's wrong. If I could not handle my laptop, if I could not handle my platform, what's wrong? Let's have this cognitive overload handled well. And let's also calibrate and recalibrate our expectations from students, stakeholders, and even vice versa from the students. Even the students should also recalibrate their expectations from us as a teacher. So trial and error is what could help us. Now let me also speak about psychological plasticity at length. Now one of the methods of developing psychological plasticity is by looking at the positives of online teaching, positives of technology-enabled teaching systems. Friends, there has been a recent claim that was made by a research which states that after the withdrawal of the lockdown, the infection rate will increase exponentially. Now, thank God, we are in a profession wherein we need not be contacted to our students all the time. We belong to a fraternity wherein we could also teach our students uncontacted on a virtual platform. Every profession does not have this merit. So let's be happy about it. Happy about the channel of contagiousness, one more chance, and also securing the future of the world, our students. in the last couple of months, I have been very happy because while I was mentoring my students during this gap between the lockdown and the examinations, I could share more with my students. I actually ended up sharing videos of Genesis. I could share more. Earlier in a synchronous classroom environment, I could only share a case study with them. Now with the case study, I could also mail them the spreadsheet so that they could number crunch and come back prepared to a synchronous classroom wherein they are happy comparing themselves with the other friends, and that is how things are. So now I could share more, I could have multiple aids, I could have videos, I could have seminal articles given to them beforehand, presentation slideshows, so that the learning effectiveness enhances to a very large extent. Now, in a traditional education system, it was me and my students in the classroom. Now, on a virtual classroom, virtual platform, I could have one more warmer soul in the classroom. I could have entrepreneurs coming in, managers coming in. I could have seasoned professionals, OD experts, organizational development experts, and of course, my alumni also, who could spare their time on a virtual platform, share the content, give a new perspective to my students, be in the classroom by not being in the classroom, which is actually enhancing the merit of our classes. I have already spoken about the smaller and the larger classroom. Synchronous synchronous learning could be actually augmented with an asynchronous learning, wherein the material is provided to the students much before they come to the virtual platform, which is one more merit. And let me also speak about the phygital model. Friends, each one of us is dreaming of going back to our classrooms wherein we were an ace at our craft. We were experts at our craft. We had been best for the past few years in our classrooms. But now it's actually a threat. We find it to be a threat to be online. But even, let's be candid, that even while we are gonna go to a face-to-face teaching method, it's going to be en route the hybrid model. En route the hybrid model, wherein I could have the phygital model, hybrid or phygital model, wherein I could have the good of both the worlds, wherein few of my students would be in the classroom and few of them would be on a digital platform, so that we could have lesser crowd and lesser dense classrooms. So phygital model is also one more merit of the online teaching methods. Now, before I dwindle down to the case method, dwindle down to the tools, let me segregate or catalog our students so that we could sort the tools according to their needs. Now, broadly, I have tried to classify or present 5 broad categories of students. The first happens to be the resilient ones. The resilient are the ones who have a coping mechanism in place. They have a strong support system. Even during the pandemic, and the resilient ones are the students who are inflicted but not very pained with the presence of the pandemic. The second is a group which has had obvious challenges, which may also have experienced illnesses during this period or loss of confidence in self, but still they are able to cope up. What we as teachers need to be more concerned about are the rest of the 3 categories that I have tried to dwell here. The first is the neurodiverse, wherein a virtual classroom will help, but that has to be augmented with more data, more content that is visually appealing. So neurodiverse students are one challenge that I need to take care of by augmenting more content that is more visible, more appealing to the senses. The second is the vulnerable lot, which are misunderstood by the community to be the reasons of this pandemic, which are prone to societal disgust. And hence these students, besides having a digital platform education system, they should also be mentored psychologically, especially during this tough times for all of us. And last is the cumulatively adverse, wherein they are vulnerable, they must have underwent an illness, they lack IT access. Friends, let us be very candid enough that while we are having this webinar, more than 50% of the world does not have access to IT infrastructure. So what about those students? We have to be concerned about them. They are societally vulnerable, cumulatively adverse students, have poor in housing infra, maybe in hygiene infrastructure. They also may be having less access to nutrition, and chances are that their parents must have lost their employment during this pandemic. So these are the students who pose a richer threat to us, a richer concern to us as teachers. Now let's dwindle down to the reason why we are here. The tools or the aids that are going to, that are important for us. Now what I have done is I have broadly categorized this into 4 categories, the aids into 4 categories: the lecturing tools, the learning management system tools, the teaching aids, and the aggregators. Now, Penapto happens to be a very beautiful tool as far as asynchronous teaching method is concerned, whereas we are much oriented with the synchronous lecturing method of Zoom, GoToMeeting, and WebEx. Business schools like the Harvard and the Stanford are banking much on the Canvas as a learning management system. And as an open source, I have used for the last couple of months Google Classroom, and I have found it to be very user-friendly. Adobe Connect is a crossover between lecturing and LMS, which is equally good for the neurodiverse students. Devi is an ace at Moodle and Blackboard, so I won't speak much about it. She may look after that. Now, as far as the teaching aids are concerned, the evaluation, besides evaluation systems that are embedded in the learning management systems, we have few other systems or platforms that also cater to the evaluation, quiz, and polls. But what is important for us is this. Now, I have never in my career, let me be candid enough, never in my career gone into a classroom with a slideshow and just put it on and asked the student to just go through that. I have been from that older school which uses a lot of board and all that. So when me had to teach on an online platform, a technology-enabled platform to my students, I found myself impelled to do that. The good news is there is a Google Jamboard. I actually mentored my student with a case study on an organization that's actually a football club or a football league using Google Jamboard, and I found it to be very effective with my students. So Google Jamboard helps as a beautiful substitute for but now we need to unlearn it, only to the extent of adding one more dimension to our teaching process of technology. Let's rewrite our minds with the same craft by enhancing technology or by putting technology as a crucible to a learning effectiveness. With this, I thank everyone for their patient hearing, and thank you, organizers. Over to you, Shashi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Krishna Priya. That was wonderful. I mean, there are so many new tools and techniques that I have not heard before that you have already extolled about, and it's a good learning experience. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Next, our third panelist is Dr. Devi Akela. Dr. Devi is a professor of management at the School of Business in the College of Professional Studies at Albany State University in Georgia, in the USA. She teaches organizational behavior and human resource management at the undergraduate level as well as at the graduate level. She has completed her PhD and MBA from the University of Leeds, United Kingdom, and her research experience are on experiential learning, critical management studies, workplace bullying, and social enterprises. She is also one of the associate editors of the Organizational Management Journal. So without further ado, I hand over to you, Dr. Devi Akela from Albany State University, USA. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to talk about a success story. That's what I was asked to talk about. So before I actually begin, I would like to tell you some things about where I work. Albany State University is located in a small rural town in Georgia. It's around 3.5 hours from Atlanta. It's an HBCU, and 2 or 3 years back, we actually merged with a local college, Darton State College, and now it's become a very big campus. We have East and West, and we have associate degrees, we have undergrad degrees, and we have master's degrees. It's a very huge campus. The net result is Albany is coming up as a college town, and we have a number of students. The idea is we can easily become the major premier institution in Southwest Georgia. But because of the changeover in the last few years, a number of changes which took place, the leadership has constantly changed hands. Net result is there's a lot of flexibility involved with regards to teachers. We don't have anybody looking over us as to what we are teaching in the classrooms or what we are teaching online. Around 60% of our faculty teaches online, and 40% is more comfortable teaching face-to-face. For instance, myself, I teach around 4 classes. I teach 2 face-to-face and 2 online. And some of my colleagues just teach, they just teach face-to-face. It's like a mixed sort of group which is going on. And my classes are not checked online as to what I'm offering to my students. There's a lot of autonomy and there's a lot of flexibility. And that was the entire situation of ASU before March. In March, we all had a 1 week off for spring break. All the students went back home and the dorms were empty, except for a few students who were still on campus. And then we are waiting to come back on Monday. COVID-19 was still not there so much in Florida and in Georgia. It was spreading across, I think, in Seattle and so on. We were not really bothered much about it. But then we get an email on Friday, and the university is supposed to open on Monday, saying there's a shelter in place in Albany. Everything is going to get closed down, and the university is closing as well. Before proceeding further, Albany, even though it was a very small town, is a very small town even now, had a large number of COVID-19 cases. We have a major hospital here, Phoebe Putney, and that became a center point for coronavirus, which was very astonishing because it's a very close town, but it seems some people came from Atlanta and it spread and spread and spread. It was really a very precarious situation at that particular time. COVID-19 even came into ASU campus. We had a dean of College of Professional Studies was quarantined. We had a couple of faculty members who came down. I actually knew 1 or 2 members, and I even emailed them later on. So it was very near home. So coming back, spring break was ending, and we were told that not to come back to campus. We were going to be closed for 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks, we had to keep everything online. For instance, I already had 2 classes online, and I had to keep another 2 classes online. easier said than done. For me, it's okay, but for other faculty, it was like a major thing. They were not used to teaching online, and all of a sudden they had to teach 4 classes online. Some people had to do lab work online. It was something which was we were not even prepared for it. There was another major issue involved. The first virtual meeting which we had with the host and the president telling us what was happening didn't go well. It was on technology. The sound was not very clear. When the higher up leadership team changed hands, there was a lot of issues. It was not a very good overall show. So in a way, we were not ready to go virtual, but we had no option. But they did a lot. The top senior team came up and they really did a lot at that particular time. They identified those faculty members who are not comfortable teaching online, and they were paired with faculty mentors who are very good teaching online. We had recently hired an instructional director for instructional design, and she placed a lot of videos on how to do simple things like even grade books. People were not aware of it. So a lot went on in those 2 weeks. Just before the university opened end of March, the chairs and the deans went to each and every virtual classroom to check faculty was ready for the next 2 weeks to teach online. I must say we really did well because we managed to finish the semester on time. We taught all classes on time, grades were released, and then not just teaching, there were a lot of other activities involved as well, which faculty members do, and all of you must be aware of it. For instance, advisement, registration, we tend to do a lot. For instance, I was in charge of a faculty learning community, and I did use FedEx before, but I was not that comfortable. But yeah, I managed to play with it, and I had most of my meetings online. I was given in charge of a selection committee, supply chain and logistics management. I managed to meet my members online, and then we even did interviews online on WebEx. So people learned a lot. We became very comfortable over the next few weeks doing a lot of things and online. Yes? Okay. People managed to do a lot of things online. We had faculty meetings online with the chair, with the dean, and with the provost. It went very smooth. We had advisement and registration, and we managed to do that online as well. Everybody was sitting from home, but I wouldn't say it was a perfect show. There were a lot of issues in the beginning with regards to technology, not knowing what to do, but we learned. We played and we learned over the next few weeks. Now, I mentioned IT. To learn, but I would like to show the difference in my way of teaching, which has happened since COVID-19. Well, I was teaching on Desire to Learn, and I used to upload all my PowerPoints, all my lecture notes, all my assignments, all my discussions, case studies, and research projects. Everything was uploaded before the semester started. In a way, it was more like what Sunita said, electronic correspondence course. I even had YouTube videos and videos from the textbook because I tend to use a lot of these in my classroom face-to-face teaching. And then I had respondents, lockdown browser, monitor, and web camera. I really think students, when you're home and you're doing quizzes, you're not sure what's happening. So I usually have all these 3 things in place to make sure cheating was not taking place and everything was getting controlled properly. Students complain and they try not to. They say the technology didn't work, I couldn't download, but that's natural, and ones just kept on being home, and in the end, the quizzes took place. I used to email students a lot. I believe that was the right way of doing things. Regular emails, this has been opened, this has been graded, do you have any questions, on a very regular basis. I used to release my cell phone number, and students used to text me, call me at any time of the day. I never used to mind it. I thought I was keeping in touch with my students. I had rubrics for assignments and discussions on a general basis, and I used to release grades online. I would say it was more like a one-way teaching process, unlike face-to-face. It was a scrutinized in nature. Putting stuff there, students looking at it and doing that sort of teaching style. But then after COVID-19, I learned a lot because what I was getting in the form of emails from other senior management team, and then we were also asked to go in for a 2-month training starting May, and we have to finish it by like 15th of July, which is called Quality Matters Training Certification. In that, we were exposed to a number of different tools. In fact, soon after, early April, we were exposed to a number of different teaching modalities. There were videos, there were training sessions, there were webinars, which exposed us to different ways we could expand while we were teaching. These are a few of things which I learned, and so did my colleagues. Because we are chatting now on the online class, I realized they had a similar mindset towards online teaching like me, and we have really grown as online teachers. So to begin with, we still use Desire to Learn LMS, but we have more student-friendly syllabus in the sense like students with disabilities, the syllabus is more friendly. Small things like font size, spacing, italics, bold, underlining, all this has become very important. We were given a choice, either you record your lectures or you do live lectures. Personally, for myself, my students in my classes tend to work. They work at Walgreens, they work at Walmart, they work at restaurants, and having an attendance in the class is a big issue. So having an attendance on an online class would prove more difficult, and therefore I prefer recorded lectures. I recorded all my lectures on WebEx, took a long time. Moreover, so because while you're teaching, you take breaks. You say, do you have any questions? And you have a discussion and students talk. While at an online recording session, you have to talk continuously for 30 minutes, and that becomes a big issue. Also had virtual office hours on WebEx. Not many students turned up, but I still feel I made an effort to reach out and contact them. Students still prefer to use a cell phone, call me, text me, or just keep in touch with other methods they feel comfortable. As I mentioned earlier, I was using a lot of emails, and I switched over to announcements. That's because I was told to do so, and I realized it's much better. Students may or may not read emails, too many emails coming. An announcement is there on the system, you read it, and then it expires. It's very student-friendly. Another issue which came up is when we closed down, students were still at home. They had not come back to the dorms. They had left their luggage. Some people left their laptops, and most of them left their textbooks, very important. And all of a sudden, they were in Atlanta, they were in Savannah, they were in different parts of Georgia. Our students mostly come from Georgia. Net result, they had no means to go back and pick up the studies again, except for the smartphones or the cell phones. So we were asked to come up with different options, and we were given the option of open educational resources because free online books. I tend to use a lot of ebook and Flatworld because it's cheaper. But now we were told to use something where there was no price attached. Everything was free. The curriculum builder tool in Desire to Learn proved very effective on this particular case. I found PDF books, which were very good, real high quality stuff, and I placed them on my online classes. I also tended to use a lot of videos from Khan Academy, and as I mentioned, but now all my videos have subtitles. I've become aware of a very important aspect. Students may have disabilities, and the way we reach out to them in a classroom, you're supposed to reach out to them in the same way on an online classroom as well. So now when I place stuff online, I click on a button which actually reads out what I did, what I have on the file. I know now that this is a very student-friendly assignment. This is a student-friendly syllabus because people can hear it. They don't have to actually read it. Even though I had recorded lectures and students thought they were useful, I had a feeling not all of them were listening to them. So I have a couple of questions later on which are graded, which says that, did you listen to the lecture? What did you think about this particular perspective? What did you think about my opinion? So they're fully aware of what was there on the lecture. At least I know that they're listening to it. Then discussions. The way I used to discussions is I had an opinion-based question, and students used to put their opinion, and they replied to the opinion of two of their classmates. It was very effective. There was a lot of interaction going on, but now I go one step further. It's called a threaded discussion or a restructured discussion where I'm an active participant. I actually go in and I create three different threads with three different opinions. I lead the classroom on the way I would do in a normal classroom discussion scenario. Students can now give their opinion. And then another thing is I say you have to post your discussion post on 3 to 4 separate days for extra credit or extra points. Students would be logging in more often. I also click on a button which says they should not be allowed to read what their classmates did before they made their own post. Again, I'm controlling what's happening. Net result, it's going much better because I'm sort of leading the discussion. I'm sort of leading what's happening, and I'm making sure they are on a regular basis in the classroom and it's proceeding fine. Assignments. Earlier, there was a question and I used to say, write one page, use 12 font. No longer do I do New Times Roman, I do Arial. Arial is students with disability friendly. So use Arial, use double spacing, do APA style referencing, and so on. But now I go much further. I have a purpose where I describe what I want my expectations are. Detailed instructions in the task, which said, paragraph this, paragraph, second paragraph this, third paragraph, these are you're supposed to cover. And then I'm trying to lead on my students because I'm not there in front of them like in a face-to-face class. In a face-to-face class, when I have an assignment, I pull it up on Decide to Learn Georgie Online View, or at least put it up on the PowerPoint and then say, this is your assignment, this is what I would like you to write about. Do you have any questions? Do you know what you're supposed to be doing? But I'm not there in an online setup. So this sort of makes sure that I'm reaching out to my students much better. I tend to use a lot of case studies. It's a management class, of course. And in a face-to-face, we do a lot of discussions. This is not possible in an online meeting. Of course, you could if you want to do a WebEx, another couple of tools which Priya mentioned. There's a lot of variety. But I'm one of those people who's not very technological, excited or motivated because it scares me as well. So I know my students are not there all the time at different timings during the week. So I try to adjust this. For instance, I have an assignment for intervention strategies in my MBA class. And it's a very interesting case study. I uploaded a PDF and then I created a discussion where I said, would you use an individual intervention? If so, what would you use it by? And they had to give the method and then they had to reply to the classmates' method. So like a discussion which is going on in a real life classroom. And then, or would you use a team-based intervention? If so, what would you use and why? Again, a lot of interaction between students was possible. We tend to use a lot of role plays. I do in my undergrad classes, ethical dilemmas and real life scenarios. And that could be easily pulled into a face-to-face class. Doesn't have to be really that highly technological advanced, simple things. For instance, in my data gathering class in OD, organizational development, I had a question which says that imagine yourself to be an OD consultant who has to, measure the working environment. What diagnostic methods would you use? Shall I carry on? There was an interruption.
I think there is some mics are on. Narendra?
Yeah, you can continue, Devi. I will switch
Mics
on
are
the
on.
mic.
Now, that's one way of doing method and starts are all working. Now, what problems did you face? What problems did your classmates face? What advice do you have for them? So like a real life discussion in a classroom. Then we had collaborative team-based research projects. I usually divide my students into teams in a face-to-face setup and they work together and they do presentations and they do reports. Now in an online, I was doing something different. It was like individual effort. So now I'm dividing the class into teams based on the icebreaker An icebreaker is when they upload their photograph and they talk about their hobbies, their families, their ambitions. It gives a picture of the entire student. So based on that, I know what sort of students they are, and I'm dividing them into individual groups. They're supposed to go and meet each other virtually. They can do on phone, or maybe they can do it on WebEx. It's up to them. The WebEx tool is already integrated into the online class, so it's much easier to use. And then they can actually come and do their presentations online on WebEx, and they upload their report. So very collaborative, very learningly, very active in nature. It's a much better method. I always have an assignment at the end of the semester where students write their reflections about what they learned. You could use a blog. A reflective blog, again, is a tool of desire to learn. It can be easily integrated. And then again, it becomes more interactive because other students can go and see what other students are learning. So it's much better in the long run. So my additions in terms of changeover in my style have been very simple ones, not really technologically highly advanced. And I have realized my colleagues are doing very similar because we're discussing with each other on the certification course, and we're helping each other. If you're not very certification course, we're helping each other confident about. Another major thing which we have included in all our online classes is still transparency in learning and teaching. All our students are first-time college cohort students, first generation. They don't know what to expect. So online classes, they feel very scared, and that's true because the moment everything became online, all the students were very jumpy. They were calling me, they were texting me, they were very worried about the classes, especially those who went face-to-face. So TIL sort of overcomes all this. We specify clear learning instructions. We specify what we expect from our students paragraph by paragraph in minute detail. We break down the points, like 5 points for your survey, 5 points for your arguments. I'm actually telling them where they're going to score. Again, when I'm face-to-face, my facial expressions, my voice, my gestures helps them. While in an online, it's not possible, and that's very difficult. But here, the emoticons come into place. You can underline, you can make it in italics, you can bold it, you can do a number of things. You can repeat it in the beginning and in the end to show it's very important. Another thing is to become very open, very transparent, very sensitive and empathetic, and ensure you create an online presence in the classroom. I try to keep on repeating that you're not alone. I'm there for you. You just have to call me, text me, do whatever you're comfortable. But remember, you're not all alone. There are students in a similar position like yourself, and there is me all the time there to make sure you finish on time. So we have done a lot in the last 2 months. And I think in the next 2 months, we're going to be much better by the time university opens in August. But ironically, in August, we're going to go face-to-face. But even then, there is a catch. You all have to wear a mask. And then we can't get everybody into the classroom because of social distancing. So since we have 2 days teaching, 2 classes per week. So one class, they're going to divide the students into 2 groups. One group comes on one day, and the rest of them do it online on a virtual platform. The next day, the next class, another group comes, and the first group sees it online. We have a couple of classrooms where it's possible to screen it directly. So they're looking at that particular possibilities, but all the committee meetings are still going to be done virtually online. We have faculty who are much older. The reason is Albany being so inside, Atlanta being so popular compared to the rural town of Albany, people don't usually try to come down here, not the younger faculty members. So most of the faculty is old, they're at risk. And they're not comfortable coming and teaching face-to-face. Neither are they comfortable teaching online, but that's a different issue. So all older faculties are still going to do online from home. So I guess that's where all this training in the summer is going to help them. That's the scenario right now. Everything is going to open up. Students, before they come, are going to be tested for COVID-19. Faculty has to take the temperatures in the morning and then come to office. But still, everybody is very hesitant. Everybody is a little uneasy. But at least we are confident about the online teaching. And me being a management teacher, I can say I'm very confident about teaching online. I still have a few hesitations, but on a long run basis, I feel more confident. I think I'm going to end here. I would not say this is a real major success story, but we learned and we come a long way. And we're a small university. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Devi. It was a wonderful presentation, and especially relating with the community college and especially for the downtrodden, how the online classes are being helpful for them. As I've said earlier, there are a lot of questions which has been put forward. So we'll try to take these questions one by one, and I'll direct it to the panelists. And we will start with these questions. There are some questions which had already come up earlier when the people have registered. We'll start taking with these questions first. One of the questions has come from Shilpi Agarwal. The question is, how do we conduct various experiential exercises in an online class? The question is, how can we conduct various experiential exercises in online class? I'll direct this question to Devi. Since Devi has been involved with online classes before, so Devi, could you answer this question?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, there are different options. You could use WebEx. You could actually do it like an online discussion. But then I don't tend to do all that. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to try to make it into a discussion sort of thing where students can interact with each other, but through words, by not actually talking with each other. But you can navigate the discussion to make sure everybody participates by making sure saying that you have to be so many times logging in a week. The more you chat, the more marks you get. So you can control experiential activities by putting it like a threaded or a restructured discussion. So that would allow people to talk and not be on a specific spot online at a specific day and time. That's my advice. Otherwise, you could use all these Google Hangouts, WebEx, and so on.
Okay, very much, right. Okay, the next question is related with it has come from one of our colleagues only, Mr. Bharat Kantharia from Ahmedabad. The question is, how practice-based questions or how practice-based topics may be handled in an online platform? I direct this question to Krishna Priya. How can you handle practice-based questions?
Bharat sir, can you please elaborate on what do you mean by practice-based questions? Are you speaking about the question bank?
I'm speaking for him. Yes, the practice-based questions means yes.
Yes, sir. Please go on.
Yes, the practice-based questions mean generally something like the practical-oriented questions, something like teaching accounting, management accounting, and so on. Okay, how would you take that?
Okay. For the subject as technical as accounting, platforms like Google Jamboards help to a very large extent. A recent video that I had seen of Professor Venkatraman from Howard Business School, who takes care of the accounting education there. He says that he extensively used a blend of asynchronous and synchronous working environment, wherein he shares the spreadsheets beforehand with the students. They do the number crunch and they come back to the classroom, and then they address it on a Zoom or whatever platform they are into, lecturing platform they are into. So what works for a technical subject as technical as accounting is, I think asynchronous working and classroom technology helps to a very large extent. I hope I was able to address the question.
Yes, yes. Okay, my third question is relating about the future. This question is directed to Professor Sunita. that would it be the new normal or degradation of value-based education in future? So what are the solutions for this? This is directed by Anish Manohar Urkure. Sunita ma'am, please switch on the mic. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I have done. So, like I said in my last couple of slides also, like it depends on your mindset, right? With what mindset you are approaching your classes, be it face to face or online. I feel that even face to face, the degradation may happen if you are not serious about it, right? So, online is a medium, right? So the medium may not affect your intent. If your intent is to impart values and proper professional development, it can happen through online also. So I personally don't feel that any medium will hamper your intent in any way, be it value imparting or professional development.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so let me take up another question. This question is directed to all the panelists. Will teaching of professional courses syllabus online, will it able to develop professionalism? Any of the panelists may take up. I mean, being on online, will it able to develop professionalism? This question has come from Vijay Lakshmi Bari.
I pose another question. That can a traditional classroom system ensure professionalism amongst the students? Now it's like a case-to-case methodology. Now what I spoke during my session was virtual platform helps us to have one more warm tone into the classroom. So I could call in the entrepreneurs, the professionals, the businessmen, also also my past students to the classroom, wherein they could develop perspectives amongst the students, wherein when they are in a virtual classroom environment, they share their experiences, and in a way it mentors my students to professionalism and to organizationhood, if I may say so. So now, so the answer to this could be, it depends on how well we are able to get the perspective in the classroom, may it be virtual or may it be the traditional face-to-face system. That is what I had to say. Over to Sunita and Dave.
Okay, let me just add in. I can say that maybe it depends on how you are delivering the service. So it depends on that only. All right, so let me go on to the next question. My question is directed towards Devi. How innovative can we be for imparting online classes? This has come from Dr. Rudra S.
I think based on that, yes.
Yes. Yes, please continue. How can? Yes.
I think it depends on person to person and the type of students who are in front of you. You can do a lot. I think there's simulations like Kahoot, and there are now different things which are available online. It depends on what type of subjects you're teaching. For instance, in accounting, you'll have to do a live lecture. You may have to send out stuff before, and then maybe you'll have to have a session where you talk with the students and then you resolve issues. I remember Sunita saying how she was using a certain tool where students have to draw stuff as well. So there's a lot of variety. It depends on your comfort zone and the comfort zone of your students as well. There are a lot of things available. So it depends on your assignments and how you would like to go about doing it. There's no limit.
Thank you, thank you. So let me take up another question which has come out in between. This question came from Dr. Ritu Jain, as well as there was one question earlier. It has come from Ruet Libne Tarandok. And the question is regarding the hybrid model. Ruet has asked about the tactics of hybrid teaching. So what is this hybrid model? Can you elaborate a bit? I mean, directing this question to Priya.
The hybrid model is what Devi spoke just a while ago, that she said that in August, when they are going to have their students and teachers back to the classroom, they are not going to densify their classrooms by having all the students attending the sessions. Now, what they are going to do is divide the classrooms wherein half of the students would come on one day and the rest of the half would be virtually present on an online platform. So what happens in this case is this is de-densification of students, wherein we are ensuring that there is no contagion, there is no contact of students with each other because the classes won't be crowded. At the same time, the delivery of teaching and learning happens. So half of the students on an online platform and half of the students physically present in a classroom is what a hybrid model or a phygital model is. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next question that I'm going to take up is a very large question, but I'll just pick up the sense of it. The question has come from Mr. Harsh Gandhar. Most of the things related with cost and so on. My question is directed to everyone, is that what sort of preparedness do teachers and administration needs to think or in order to shift towards hassle-free system of online delivery of a management course? I mean, how should the administrator and teacher should prepare? I think Sunita may pick up the. Yes, please.
Actually, the question is so big that it can take quite a lot of time to explain how they can do it. Yes. So, but if you see, the main role of administrator is to provide the services like the proper software, the hardware, the proper environment to conduct the classes. And the role of teacher will be to update themselves. So again, the institute has to provide the opportunity that teachers can go for training, can update themselves, can try and can learn by trial and error. So they have to be patient about their performance also. So there are so many ways in which, as I said earlier also, that there are three pillars which will affect the success of online teaching. One is teachers themselves, that is for sure. Second will be the organization, the administrators, the institute. And third will be the community at large. They have to come together. Everyone has their own role to play in the success of online teaching.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just pick up the last question of this session. This question again is directed to everyone. This question has come from Hari Krishan Kurup. The question is, what are the practical approaches of teaching management subjects to keep the interest of the students from wavering? What are the practical approaches so that the students do not waver? How would you engage the students? How would you engage the students?
One solution.
It cannot be a one solution. Yes, one of the solutions could be.
One of the solutions could be is having a blend of synchronous and asynchronous learning methods, wherein the students are given tasks to do much before the classrooms and they come prepared for a virtual classroom. So that could be one thing. The second thing is have them engaged into smaller teams or smaller team assignments, wherein they blend with their friends again virtually, their batchmates virtually, and they come back to the classroom with their work done. So that also ensures to a very large extent when the students are engaged, the attendance is ensured to a very large extent. So I think that out of the many ways, these two could be the few ways, and of course the hybrid model can also be a solution. Anyone else to speak about?
Yeah, I have a suggestion. This teacher could be more active in the classroom on discussions, maybe giving feedback, maybe recording your feedback as well, giving personalized feedback to show that she's pretty much there in the classroom so students feel more encouraged to come on a regular basis. We could also control the attendance by saying if you have discussions to them 4 times on different days of a week. So again, they're logging in more frequently. So maybe through marks, through more teacher presence, we can control the level of motivation in the classroom as well. So that's a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am. Please, Sunita Rani, ma'am.
What I want to add is not any tip or any technique to keep them engaged. The one suggestion will be to the teachers if they can attend any online class themselves, and if they can empathize with students, that how it feels to be online, and try with various methods, try learning from people through various methods, they will come to know automatically that okay, this is not working, this is working. So it will take time. There is no thumb rule, there is no one way, there are multiple ways which any teacher who is interested, those who were earlier interested in student engagement, they will continue doing that online also.
Right, very much. Of course, the teacher has to innovate himself or herself in the way how you engage the students. Okay, thank you very much for this Q&A session. Whatever questions that we have left out, we will be emailing the answers, and some of the queries that we'll try to answer as much as we can. It's very nice to see you, Bharat sir, in the platform, as well as Dr. Noor Firdaus Jain, Jahan. So I'm just coming into the concluding part of this session. Let me just summarize a little bit of what we have done today. We have looked into the three perspectives of online teaching and learning process, especially related to management education. Our first speaker, Professor Sunita Rani, has discussed about the difficulties or the opportunities that one has to encounter during the transition from offline to online, and how to overcome some of these issues. Then, of course, R. Krishna Priya has gone through the methods, the techniques and tools to be used on this online education, teaching and learning process. She also has explored on the various needs and the comfort zones of the faculty and how to maximize their capability. And of course, the last session was concluded with the real life experiences of Dr. Devi at Albany University. She also shared her experiences of the online pedagogy as a mode of imparting teaching and learning process. So after these sessions, we also had a Q&A session where some of the queries were being raised, and these queries were being answered in terms of the techniques that we have gone through, the psyche, tools of online mode, and the experiences of the online teaching. The questions were answered by the expert panel diligently and satisfactorily. And with these deliberations, what my observation is that some form of online teaching has been already prevalent in the pre-COVID-19 pandemic, but now it has become a more of a prominent feature. As I have mentioned earlier also, in this time of emergencies, we have taken certain decisions to adopt the online mode as the need of the hour. Yes, the core features of management education, that is learning to work as a team towards achievement of a common goal, or the prioritization of the task in terms of importance, and the lack of a real social environment and the atmosphere of a business school may be lagging behind in a virtual environment. The discussions which has led to the issues of experiential learning in online mode, which needs to replicate the virtual world to some extent, at least. So coming to the topic of the webinar, can management be taught online? Yes, if directions are to achieve the teaching and learning process and to fulfill the purpose of learning to work as a team and to make effective decisions, learning to prioritize tasks, and creating a lifelike virtual environment if possible. Otherwise, may have difficulty in imparting management education online. So at the end, I would like to give my sincere thanks to all the esteemed panelists, Professor Sunita Rani from Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Dr. R. Krishna Priya from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Dr. Devi Akela from Albany State University, USA, and our sincere thanks also goes to my colleague Narendra Kagita, who is the technical person behind all these connections and networks, and most important of all the participants that who have attended this wonderful webinar. Last request is that we will be mailing a feedback form to all the participants. And participants, please do give us some feedback so that we can learn something out of this. So we are very much thankful to you all. If you could spare some more time to fill in those feedback forms. So thank you all. Once again, thank you. And good night and good day to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So can we call it a day? Or
Yes, let us call it a day.
yeah,
Thank you.
To all the participants, just one last thing, that since we've been hosting it from 5 locations, so there were some technical glitches that were there at the participants level, as well as remote locations. Like sir is based out of Mizoram. He also had faced some technical issues, and Priya also faced certain technical issues, which was there because of the internet that was unavailable at certain points in time. Anyway, we'll close it. Thank you, everybody. And the feedback form will be mailed by tomorrow morning. Secondly, the webinar video recording will be available online and will also be mailed across to you in an hour's time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the support.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Hi, Bharat sir.
Narendra.
Bharat sir is not audible. Okay. Anyway, thank you, sir. Bye.
Better, can we all come again on the
Yeah,
platform? Can you make one more for the organizer?
Yes, yes. Yes, I'll
Okay, so
we'll
shall
log
we
out. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll send the
Yes.
link across. Bye.
Okay.
Sure, sure. Thank you.